When was the last time a film made you so emotionally invested that it just jacked with your heartstrings? That it made you elated and devastated all at the same time? The film Life Itself is from writer-director Dan Fogelman, who created and produces the TV show This Is Us. So will the film wreck you emotionally, or will it totally inspire you? Let's go. The movie is told in 5 chapters over 3 acts. The first act surrounds itself with Oscar Isaac and Olivia Wilde. We also have Annette Bening and Mandy Patinkin and Jean Smart and Olivia Cooke in there as well as supporting characters, but really the central focus is Oscar Isaac and Olivia Wilde. Olivia Wilde's character floats the idea of the unreliable narrator. She's a college student, this is what she's basing her thesis on. Now, this is a literary device that's not new to film either. We have unreliable narrators in a lot of different films. Take Memento, take Fight Club, Girl on a Train, even Shutter Island and Sixth Sense. Now, in these films, you can't tell whether or not the main character is lying or telling the truth, or maybe they're just deluded. And that's what makes them an unreliable narrator, because they're the ones telling the story, but we as an audience can't tell if what we're actually seeing is true. Olivia Wilde puts forth that life itself is an unreliable narrator because it's constantly changing and we don't really know what's actually happening until we're actually in it and experiencing it. And so it could also change depending on perspectives, depending on memories, depending on how we viewed a certain circumstance. This is played out really well in the first act because you get to see multiple views of the same relationship, and we're left wondering as an audience is what we're seeing true, or is it false, or is it just how this character is remembering something? The second act stars Antonio Banderas, Sergio Perez-Mencheta, Leia Costa, and Alex Moner. While the first act is kind of manic and has a little bit of humor to it, but is also very tragic and sad, the second act is more of that middle of the road, just slow building type of emotion, where you're drawn into the characters and you get to experience this growing love, and then also maybe an impending doom, though you're not really sure because it's kind of just going along and something's eating at you as you're watching this, but you don't know exactly why it is or where the shoe is going to drop, or if there is even a shoe that is going to drop. Now, Dan Fogelman, who produced and created This Is Us, knows how to bring family drama to the screen. Now, in Life Itself, though, he is really just tugging at our emotions. He's really taking us along for this ride because he's introducing characters and he's just sitting on them. And he's really just focusing on them. It's not bouncing back and forth from this story to this story to this story to this story. No, it's telling a story and then transitioning to another story. And you know that there's going to be a connection and that there are little breadcrumbs here and there that you can see that he's piecing these together. And honestly, the end, the climax of it is predictable, that you've seen it coming all the way through, so it's not shocking or anything else. But you do see that how he pulls it together, and you see this one story and then another story, and how they intermesh to make life. All of the performances in Life Itself are really, really good. I mean, they are heartfelt and they are just truly believable and convincing, because it's almost like they put their all into it. And you also take into effect the filmmaking quality itself. They have some really intimate shots where it is just focused on the face, just maybe even head, shoulders a little bit, and it just sits there. And we just view the character, sometimes not doing anything, just sitting in their feelings, just longing or sadness or hope or despair. Any of these where they just sit and they just stare at the camera. And what that does is that brings the audience into this really close intimacy. And so we are drawn in and we feel what they're feeling. Now, sometimes though, I need a let up. I need some emotional distancing because I can't just feel more and more sadness, more and more emotion, more and more despair, any of these things without that let up also, because otherwise I go into the bell jar, and Dan Fogelman does a really good job of putting me in that bell jar. Unfortunately though, for Life Itself, he seals the lid on that and he just tamps it down and then he sets it on the shelf, and there I sit and stew in that. There are some really beautiful shots because we have shots of New York City, and then we also have them of the Spanish countryside. And both of them are just beautiful in their own ways. And we get to just see it and we get to feel it and experience it and we're drawn in. It puts us into that scenario. Unfortunately, though, there's an overall sadness that happens within the film and that carries itself through the film. And it just, when you get some lightheartedness at the end or some resolution, it's too little too late. At the beginning of the film, Olivia Wilde is telling Oscar Isaac how important Bob Dylan is and how important his songs are. And she's making him listen and just experience them. And no, you can't go anywhere until you listen to this song. And so throughout the entire movie, you get Bob Dylan's Make Me Feel Your Love just instrumentally played in different ways and different feelings, different pacing, but it's always there. Now the funny thing is, at one point, the narrator of the film says, most people didn't even know that it was a Bob Dylan song. They thought that it was a Garth Brooks song. And that's when it went, oh my gosh, that's who I've been hearing this entire time. I didn't know it was Bob Dylan either. I really thought that it was Garth Brooks. I'm singing the song throughout the movie, and then, yep, I'm exactly who the narrator was talking about. Now, even though that there is this overall sadness to the film and it overshadowed any happiness that you kind of got at the end or even bits and pieces throughout, I still enjoyed watching it. Now, it's definitely not something that I'm going to watch again because I've experienced it. I've felt it, and I've seen the shocking moments, and I've seen the happy moments, and I've seen these wonderful performances that I think will be recognized, but overall, I couldn't watch it again. Even though the ending is very predictable and there is this overarching sadness throughout the entire film, I loved the aspect of the unreliable narrator, and I loved the fact that they called it out in the movie. Now, a lot of the times, as I said before, in some of those other films, they don't call it out at the beginning. We just experience an unreliable narrator, and that's what carries along the story because we don't know if we can trust it. But in this, we're told from the very get-go that life itself is unpredictable. And so we cannot guarantee what we're seeing as a reliable source of information until we experience it. There's no sex or nudity, there is profanity, and there is some violence. I give life itself 3 out of 5 couches. Are you a fan of This Is Us? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.